The Winds of Freedom with Dawn and Sylvester and Richard Sylvester. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
If you have any questions, you can type the question on the chat here, and I will copy and paste it for Richard to read. And also, if you want to type your question in YouTube, that's also awesome. If you would like to do an introduction, or just say hi, Richard and Dawn.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Richard.
Hi there. Which one of us shall start with a little introduction?
Well, I could start, I
Okay.
guess. So non-duality is the seeing that what you took as your self, the identification with the mind and with the body falls away, and all the energy that was in that is just totally released and floods into what is. So there's an at-homeness in just being. So that it's the realization of all of your desires. All desire is satisfied in the seeing of this. So everywhere you are is sufficient. Everything is sufficient unto itself. So you're totally where you are. So there's a complete release from this constricted, time-bound entity. So it's moving into the timeless. So peace is in just being. And so, so your true being is love, and there's an unloveness with everything that is. And there's no need for anything external to add to that. It's the end of seeking. It's the end of looking for something to make you more sufficient in any way. It's just the total resting in being. So it's very oceanic in a sense, as in it's very womb-like. It's everything in the moment is provided for, so nothing is needed. So for during a honeymoon period, in particular, there'll be no need to change anything. Everything is perfect just as it is, and that perfection is also seen. It can be visibly seen. It can be, the sacred can be seen in everywhere you are. So in nature, for instance, where it's really clear, there's a dimension of the sacred, of stillness that permeates everything. So it's incredibly absorbing. So where you were previously absorbed in the mind, suddenly the absorption is in what what is and what you're looking at and where you are. So it's a total release of tension into that. And the seeing usually there's a seeing of emptiness first of all, which is just seeing that the mind is not you, and that there is no one. The physical disappears, the boundary between the physical and everything disappears, and any sense of ownership of any of that disappears. Is not replaced by anything. It doesn't need any replacement. It is just life being life living us, if you like. It's just there's an ease, a sense of ease, and a sense of, it's not really relaxation in the sense that there's actually quite a lot of energy, but it's a still energy. So it's just a restful energy, which often comes with a very subtle sense of bliss as well. So when you come to rest, particularly when you sit, there's a kind of a lovely kind of coming to rest in everything. So that's it. So it's the end of separation. There just is everything that arises, and the character still continues to live, and that still matters. The character's life still matters, but it's not. Yeah, it's just that ownership that is gone now. So it doesn't matter in the same way. There's an acceptance of everything about that character. And even if there's non-acceptance of something, that's okay too. So everything's okay. So it's a really good, I don't know, it's just a very good place to be. So so that's oneness, and it's love, and it's very beautiful. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I've just add a little bit, tiny bit to that. Yeah, it's just to stress this thing about it being the end of seeking, because it's the recognition. It's the end of the seeker, really, which entails the end of seeking, and it's just the recognition that that which the seeker thought they were looking for can actually never be known. You know, so it's like. We could almost say, you know, the questions all go away, not because they're answered, but because they are seen to be unanswerable and irrelevant, because the questions were asked from the point of view of the one who sat here feeling themselves to be separate from everything else. And from that position of separation, a lot of questions make sense. Like what, well, any question which involves starts with the question, what will happen to me if, or what will happen to me when, you know, what will happen to me when I die, for example, or it could be anything else. And all of these questions just simply collapse when it's seen, hang on, there is no me, you know, it's just irrelevant. What will happen to me when? What will happen to me if? Well, it just doesn't apply, because there isn't a me, there is just what's ever happening. Always whatever's happening. Yeah. And I can see we've got some questions coming up here already. So I'll start by reading some of these out, and Emerson can let us know if somebody wants to come on live. So the first question here is, would you say liberation is a relaxation, a final breathing out?
It's not relaxation in the normal sense of doing something to chill out, which is often a lower kind of energy. So it's a heightened energy. It's because there's so much more awareness of all experience. The focus that was normally narrowed is kind of widened. So kind of there's much more panoramic kind of view. It's almost like you're literally seeing the bigger picture. So there's an intensification of energy, but like I say, it's a still energy. So it's sweet. It's sweet, and there's a really dropping into rest. The word relaxation doesn't resonate so much because I associate that with a kind of almost release of some kind. So it's a heightened energy that's totally peaceful and at one with itself, and doesn't need any stimulation. It's free from all that. So it's free from, it's sufficient unto itself.
I like the idea that it's a breathing out. I'm not so sure about the idea of, it says here, is it a final breathing out? I mean, my guess is the final breathing out would be death. So I'm not going with that one. But I very much like the idea that it's a breathing out. It's a sort of an exhalation. It's a kind of, if you like, a sort of a feeling of relief. I mean, none of those words get it, but they get, you know, somewhere close to it. And I've quoted quite often this phrase from, it's actually from a Dzogchen Buddhist, relaxation is the closest thing to Buddhahood. So I'll go with that as well.
And it is a kind of death. I mean, it's death. The mind seems to, like, it just withers and dies. There's no association with that. It's never, like, it really seems like central to experience, and that just totally, it falls away. It's like a pop balloon. It really is like that. There's, you know, you can observe the mind when it appears, which appears much less often, or it's definitely less for some people. And in my own case, it can go for a long time. But when it's there, it's not. There's a distance from that. It's not real. It's lost its reality. It's lost its central core from where you operate. It's totally gone. It was never necessary. It's so unnecessary. You just fall into your natural knowing, which is much more sweet. So
yeah, this recognition that the mind that I might have taken myself to be doesn't even exist. You know, there's just a flow. Yeah, that everything is simply a flow. Everything is a process, we might say. And one of the most obvious of those processes is the flow of perception, including thoughts, which we usually think of as the mind. Yeah. Anything else on that? Or shall I
No.
read the next message from here? John Blake wants to know, what is it like to have a non-dual relationship? And the question is for both of us.
Okay.
Go on, yeah.
In relationship, it is interesting because there seems to be, there's a kind of merging with whatever arises. So that dropping away of the self, it's like, so there's a total being with whomever you're with, which is great in terms of listening to or being with, but it's also, there's nothing to grab hold of, and that's why it's really, there's just no boundary. It's much more intimate, but without the normal intimacy. There's no needs in that, so there's just this kind of pure relating. So in relationship, it's just a pure being with. It's there's none of the normal. I'm speaking for myself, but the games and all the fantasy stuff falls away. So you realize how much the mind gets in the way of things. So you're relating without the mind, which means you're not really interested in fantasy and people who relate from the mind. It's just a pure being with what's appearing. So whatever's happening in the moment in relationship is a total thing, and you're not carrying all that baggage. So it's a dropping into what's occurring between you and someone else, which is really quite beautiful. Yeah,
I'd say everything becomes more immediate, because experience is no longer mediated through or filtered through, through the person or through the personal mind. So just everything becomes more immediate. And then, of course, the mind has its specialities, and where relationships are concerned, one of the mind's specialities is game playing. So, the game playing is likely to drop away, and there's just more raw whatever is actually happening without the mind playing its monkey tricks to tangle whatever is actually happening up into some complex and usually not very healthy or helpful story. Yeah. So it's like just everything becomes simplified, I would say. Yeah. Anything else there?
No.
I'm going to read one more of these, and then I'll see whether Emerson's got anyone who wants to come on live yet. From Deepak Handa, is the me, in inverted commas, is the me a contraction in the physical body or in the mind?
Oh, well, do you want to say, or shall
I? Well, I'll have a go at that first, if you like.
Okay.
Is the me a contraction in the physical body or in the mind? It's simply a contraction in the total system. I mean, I'm aware that already today we've been using the word the mind as if it actually existed. So it's at this point that I'm going to throw in what I usually do to remind ourselves that actually, because there isn't such a thing as the mind. There's no thing, the mind, which somehow is more what I am than my physical body. There is simply a process of experiencing, which we call the mind. I mean, the experiences that we most relate to the mind, of course, are thoughts. So there's a process of thinking that we think of the mind, but also any experience. And the contraction, it can't be said in either way. That it is simply a contraction which is held. It's an apparent contraction which appears to be held in the kind of totality of the being. But the interesting thing about this contraction is that it's not really noticed usually until it's gone. It's a strange thing, because one of the things that might happen in awakening is the recognition that there was a contraction there, a tightness, if you like, in the system, which was never recognized before. And now it's recognized at the moment that it's gone, and it's recognized precisely because it has gone. And I mean, I won't say very much about that, but just to add one other thing about that, the reason for this is because the contraction in the kind of physical and mental and emotional system, it's like it's always been there. It's always there. It's not noticed. It's like it seems to be my natural state of being because it's always been there. So when it disappears, that's when it's noticed. And that's when it's recognized that what seemed like my natural state of being always had this kind of tightness about it, this reservation, almost like a holding back from life about it. So when it's gone, it's gone. And this is why some people say, well, there is a sound to waking up. There is a sound to awakening. There is a sound to self-realization. And that sound is an exhalation of relief. A sort of as this contraction leaves the system.
I would just say that my experience, the physical almost disappears. So to even speak of contraction, it's like almost like there is no physical anymore. It's almost like there is just what is. There's no sense of anyone being here, and that includes the physical. So they're just words and coming out of, might as well be air. It's just, there's no sense of any somatic sense of anything being here at all. It's just, could be a breeze, it could be anything. So yeah, it's just a total loss of the mental and physical, all of it. And there's just what is. And I guess the physical is part of that, but there's no sense of anyone being in here or anything to be in, or in any sense of tangible. So yeah, it's almost like being pure spirit. That's what it feels like, just being formless. So for me, contraction it wouldn't be the word I would use. It's just the end of the physical. It's the end of the mental and the physical. It's a ghost. Not even a ghost, not even that, just emptiness. But I love it.
I'm just wondering, Emerson, whether there's anybody who wants to come in live before we look at the other questions here.
Yeah, if anyone wants to raise, to ask a question live, you can click on, people that are on YouTube, you can click on the link that's on top to be able to ask a live question. If people that are here, you can also raise your hand and I'll call you. So far, it's just a whole bunch, lots of questions here. They're piling up.
Shall I go on with these written questions?
Yes,
then?
Please go ahead.
Hell, I hoped you were going to rescue us from the next two questions, which is what is reality? And then the one after that is what is death? But then we're going to have to face those then, shall we? What is reality? Should we go with those? With that? Shall I or shall you?
Go for it.
Oh, go for it. Thank you very much. What is reality? Whatever you want it to be, it's a word, define it how you like. So I will say reality is whatever's happening, whatever's actually happening. In other words, phenomena. Phenomena are, reality is phenomena, whatever's happening. Oh, words are being spoken, sounds are being heard, movement is apparently happening. And that is reality. And reality is also, if you like, that is everything. And reality is also the nothing out of which the everything is appearing, and they are the same. They are not different. So it's not that there is nothing and out of that there is everything which appears, because that's pretty obviously a dualistic description. It's not that. That's just the way of speaking. It's just the way that language works. Actually, everything is also nothing. This hand moving, this mouth moving, these sounds coming out are everything and also nothing, both, because they're not both, they're just the same thing. This is nothing moving, and this is nothing speaking, and this may be nothing thinking. So reality is what whatever is actually happening. It's nothing and the everything, which is the same.
Yeah, there's not much to add to that. I suppose in the initial saying, it's visible, that can be visible, that emptiness, which but it's so deeply known and it's so deeply experienced, and it's always experienced. So there's a sense of not deriving anything from anything, and in a sense, experience, you can't get something out of a situation or anything. There's a kind of purity to that, as in a way. There's nothing that can add to anything because there's nothing there that could be added to. So it's the end of any kind of accumulation of anything. Yeah, there's just pure emptiness, out of emptiness, and out of which everything arises. So yeah, it's experienced very differently in a way. So yeah, that's reality, is totally unreal, totally nothing happening, and yet this arising, and that's experienced moment to moment.
Well, I guess we haven't been rescued from what is death, which is the next question that's come up. Thank you, Emerson, for not rescuing us. What is death? Do you want to go for that, or should I?
Someone raised their hand. Want me to call
Well,
them?
I think, okay, well, I think as an act of good faith, I think we'd better tackle what is death, then we'll take the raised hand.
All right.
Do you want to go for that? Or?
Well, there's nothing to say. I mean, death is just the end of the physical, the end of that. I mean, we can't say any more of it. Anything else goes into metaphysical speculation, which I find fascinating. But yeah, so it's just the end of the physical, and the sting of that, when thinking about that, is removed, because identity is no longer dependent on the physical. So but I think if I was facing death, I might feel very differently. But in contemplation of that, it seems to lose its hold somehow. It doesn't seem so powerful or so important. It seems, because this is in a sense a living death, but a beautiful, loving, living death one.
Yeah. Yes, death is the end of the dream of separation. Indeed, yeah. I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
We have a hand raised, so we can move on. Yeah, okay.
Hello, Richard. And gee, I forgot your name.
Dawn.
Yeah.
Hi, you two.
Okay. I think, Dawn, when you were saying that there was nothing to be added or into a relationship or something, I'm thinking about physical contact and having a nice dinner. Do those things disappear?
Oh God, no.
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 Yeah. I mean, that it sounded so stale to me.
No, it's lovely. No, going out for dinner, like the intimacy of that, like I love stuff like that. Like I always did, and I think it's great. And it's like, is it even more because you're just so much more with with the food, with the person,
Right.
And,
Right.
Yeah, and a glass of wine and whatever
Right.
it is. It's lovely. It's
Okay. I thought the way you were describing it, it sounded like everything disappeared.
oh God,
All
no, you just
Oh, okay.
you're so where you are, like, so like yeah, it's really, really important. It's really nice to share stuff with somebody else like that. There's a real beauty in that. So yeah, relationship is actually really enhanced by this. So yeah, definitely.
So there are two levels to this, I would say. There's the level of the physical, which doesn't disappear, which you still want to go out and eat and have intimacy with your partner and all those things. And there's a level where there's nobody, and there's nobody doing these things, and there's nobody having contractions and being contracted, and nobody being realized. Is that also true?
Well, yeah, and then the physical relating as well, because you're not you're not elsewhere, you know. So intimacy is, you know, that is more beautiful because of that. You know, you're not elsewhere going off in thought or anything like that. So there's a kind of really being with someone in you know, in a deep way, and the physical relationship as well is enhanced by that. So there's no, because you're more in the experience. So actually it's intensified by that. It's not a loss of that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they're not two things. I mean, they coexist, if you like. I mean, they're not two things, they're the same thing.
Okay.
You know, the experience of whatever is being experienced, let's say something is being experienced and enjoyed, you know, that's not separate from being nothing and everything. You know, it's not one and the other. It's all of it.
Okay. So being liberated and having a contraction of seeking is the same thing in the end.
Oh. Well, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, in a way it is. That's not what I meant. I meant
No.
you know, I meant enjoying as a body organism this wonderful glass of whatever it is, water, gin, vodka, tequila, who knows. Yummy. And so having a kind of a sensory experience like that is not different from, the reason I've stopped is because I can't describe it. It's not different from, you know, the non-contracted state, right, although it isn't a state, right? Now you've thrown an interesting question in. If you remind me, it was about a kind of seeking, yeah? The contracted state of seeking. Yeah, well, the contracted state of seeking, of course, is still liberation. Everything is liberation. Everything is simply oneness doing its thing. But the contracted state of seeking sure as hell doesn't feel like liberation. Right. And so generally we could say, as long as that contracted state of seeking is going on, liberation will not be realized. In other words, the body, mind, organism sitting here will not realize that it is already liberated. I mean, the body, mind, organism doesn't need liberation because it already is liberation. But if it's living with this contraction and this feeling that there's something missing, and this feeling that I've got to try very hard to find whatever it is that seems to be missing, I mean, that's uncomfortable. So it may be liberation, but it doesn't feel like liberation. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but it's kind of sadomasochistic because I want to feel this liberation, but I don't feel this liberation. But I'm here at the same time trying to find this liberation, which causes even more suffering because I'm searching for that liberation. It's kind of like a vicious circle, if you can. But at the same time, I'm enjoying this conversation, and I don't know how to explain it.
I'm just going to ask, being here, having this conversation, is it just absolute, total, pure suffering, or is there just a little bit of relief and enjoyment and peace from it as well?
I think as with any relationship, there's a bit of both.
There will be. Yeah, it's an interesting idea that until this is seen, as long as we're searching, I may regret saying this, but it's come to me, as long as we're seeking, it's like we have a relationship with oneness, which we are seeking. And that's very uncomfortable. Of course, when seeking is ended, there is no relationship with oneness anymore, because there's no me and it.
There is only oneness.
There is only what's happening. Yeah.
But sometimes it seems that there isn't oneness because we believe that we have to seek oneness.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
I'm not trying to get this in my mind, but to bring this to a practical level, you like a nice dinner, but in society, things can go bonkers, like, well, you want a nicer car, you want a nicer job, you want to dominate over other people so you can get ahead. Those are also types of seeking too. Do those things disappear? Or
Well, yeah. Well,
ambition?
yeah, all of that disappears, and yet desires can still arise. But they tend. I mean, there's a honeymoon period during which actually there've been. It's unlikely that any of that will arise. It'll just be, you know, a sort of satisfaction with, even if you're in the worst relationship in the world, even that can be kind of embraced. So everything is, there's a time in which you might kind of start to want to come back into the world and to do stuff, but it doesn't have that drive to it. So it's a kind of more natural kind of flow, or kind of bringing your life into alignment, if you like, with your kind of seeing. But yeah, it's not, yeah, there's no need in it. So there might be a desire to climb up a hierarchy, to do well, to change something, buy a nicer car, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff continues to happen. It's just life, you know, if that's what you want. But it's not
That is strong.
Yeah, there's no investment in that in the same way. So, but I think for a period of time, there can be a complete absence of that, really, because everything is just it's all provide for. Everything is enough. You don't really give a damn. Like, you just don't. So, you know.
I'm going to add that I think, you know, in separation, as it were, when we're seekers, most of our desire, well, a lot of our desires, at least, maybe most, perhaps all of them to some extent, have a kind of pathological element to the desire. And so what I would say is that, you know, when this is seen, that, you know, desire, of course, may still be there, but the pathological elements of it,
Right,
you know, fade, disappear, whatever. So we're just left, if you like, with pure desire. And I think it's important to say this, because, of course, an awful lot of the spiritual paths, if you were a seeker like I was, you know, sort of following spiritual paths, gurus and so forth, I mean, a lot of those spiritual paths very strongly encourage asceticism. In other words, very strongly suggest that we have to give up our desires, our worldly desires,
right.
in order to attain some spiritual goal. And I would say that that does cause a great deal of unnecessary suffering.
Yeah, I think I was under the misinterpretation of being a seeker and following this, that it should look a certain way. That it doesn't. And that's a big relief to me, because I'm trying to reach an idea that's probably just in my head of how non-duality is, because non-duality encompasses everything.
Yeah, and of course, some desires are simply pathological in themselves. And again, if that's the case, there'll be a tendency. It's not automatic. There'll be a tendency for those desires to disappear when this is seen.
Yeah, it becomes less instrumental as well. So there's certainly in my own case, there's more a sense of like just wanting to be around people I could really relate to, like, and just be with, you know, like, so there's, I don't know, it becomes more about love, I think, than gain, you know, but they're not compatible. But,
No,
you know.
that's exactly why I'm here. I mean, I'm around people who I can talk to about this. This is not something I talk to at work, not at the coffee table. Nobody's understanding me. This is exactly why I'm here.
Yeah.
But that can be called love, because maybe we feel like we're on the same wavelength. But when we're speaking with people who don't understand this, that's also love too, I would say. But we don't accept that. We want to get away from those situations and people. And for me, I think it's you know, learning to accept that and not trying to mold myself into a idea of a non-dual person who can accept everything. Yeah. Anyway, that was my spiel.
Yeah.
That's another great idea that we meet on the spiritual path quite often, which can really screw us up. You know, I've got to be more accepting. I've got to be more accepting.
Right.
And then I can flagellate myself because I haven't been accepting. You know, like all of that tends to kind of just evaporate. It's just an idea. It's just mind stuff and mind story.
And also if you're a bit of a people pleaser person, actually you may be less accepting, you know, that you might, you know, develop stronger boundaries and be able to sort of say no and actually go, no, I don't want that, you know. So it depends. It just becomes more healthy and more balanced, I think.
If you don't question it, I think, then things become more healthy. But I've always questioned things in my life, and that's
Oh, no, keep questioning. No, that's good. It's good stuff there. Yeah.
all right. I won't take up any more of your time. Thanks so much, Richard and Dawn.
Okay.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Do we have another live question?
No, but there's lots of written questions.
Okay, shall I go on with those then for the moment? Well, I'm not going to censor these. I'm just going to take them no matter what difficulty they get us in. So following on the one about death, here's one. Does experience or what's happening continue to happen after the death of the body? Infinity and eternity seems to imply this. Does experience continue after the death of the body? Would you like to go for that one?
Well, if it didn't, we wouldn't be here. Yeah, experience. Yeah, there's only experience that continues.
No, after the death of the body.
Oh, after the death
yes,
of the body.
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
I'm surprised
right,
by
okay.
your certainty.
I'm sorry. I was sort of thinking. I was sort of thinking that death of the body's already happened, but yeah, no, it hasn't. So, well, there's no way of knowing that, you know, unless you've had an NDE. And a lot of people have had NDE say no, it doesn't, and they're unequivocal in that. But that's, for the rest of it, that's metaphysical speculation. So who knows? I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't. But there's a sense of knowing that you can't know that and I'm comfortable with not knowing, and I think that's something you come into when you've seen this. So yeah, maybe it does. I mean, the physical seems irrelevant in a sense, so who knows.
Yeah, I think living in separation, that's an interesting question, because living in separation, it's a question that appears to maybe possibly have an answer. And of course, it's obvious that many people feel that they do have an answer to that question, and that when separation collapses, then the question in a way, and other metaphysical questions all like that also collapse. You know, is there a soul? Is there rebirth? Is there life after death, and so forth? These questions just tend to collapse. I think it's part of the reason that relaxation increases when liberation is seen, because these questions can be extremely aggravating and bothersome to the mind, as long as the mind thinks that it might be able to find an answer. In the collapse of the self, it becomes quite obvious that there are no answers to these questions. I mean, we could call them baseless speculation if we like, but there is no possible answer. And so whatever part of the system might have been involved with worrying itself about such questions tends to just go away, go to sleep, give up, attend to something more important, like maybe having a nice ice cream or something like that, because these metaphysical questions cannot be answered. Well, of course they can be answered, but they can't be answered with any answer that will bear much scrutiny for more than about half a minute. So yeah, we just live happily, maybe, with the uncertainty.
But also the sense of separation can drop away in a near-death experience, and for that person, they would have a certainty about that. So it's that's a very different experience, and obviously it's not my experience, so I'm not going to comment on that, but so it's experienced very differently. So, but yeah, for me, I just say I don't know, but I find it very interesting. Like, so.
Yeah. Okay, there's no yellow hand up there on the screen, so I'm just going to go on with these questions that people are writing in. How is psychotherapy related to the path of non-duality, awakening, and liberation?
What is it? Well, psychotherapy is, I mean, stuff can survive awakening. So trauma can survive awakening. You might need to, you might want to deal with that, and psychotherapy is a way of dealing with that. Also, repression can survive that. You may not know. It's difficult after awakening because there's a honeymoon period during which you couldn't really give a damn. If you're in an abusive relationship, for instance, you may not know about that, but you'd be completely content. So actually, but some of this stuff starts to come up to be seen at a certain point after awakening. So you might start to see stuff, and maybe you'll want to work on that in psychotherapy. Maybe you won't even need to. Maybe you'll just see it and correct how you're living. Trauma can lessen a lot, but yeah, you might want to work with it. So in a sense, this stuff can kind of go together, but it is kind of still mind body stuff. So you may wake up and be actually frightened to go into the psychological, because you might think, oh my God, what if I lose my awakening? And I've heard a lot of people say that kind of thing. So it doesn't tend to happen, so but I think it's important for some people to bring their life into alignment with their seeing, to do, I don't know, whatever kind of work or relationship that's more conducive to just that kind of flow of your being, and kind of feels more natural, because maybe you're in a better state in which to sort of self-actualize, to kind of all that stuff that's been put on hold because of low self-esteem and feeling like shit about yourself, all that kind of stuff. There's a time in which maybe you can start to really grow. So they can run together as well. So do you want to say anything?
No, I'm going to leave that one to you. Yeah. Any more about that, or shall we move on?
Yeah.
Because the next question I've already noticed is a very deep one. Are you still, I don't know which one of us this is to, are you still manipulating to avoid doing the dishes? But then in brackets, to be fair, it does say that was a joke, but I still think it deserves consideration. I have no idea which one of us that's to, or both of us, but I think I for myself, I'm going to give a firm no to that question. Are you happy to move on? Yeah, I didn't want to miss it out, because I think people out there, they can read this, they'll know if I'm censoring these questions.
That's the most profound question ever.
Well,
can be.
It's the most profound one so far. We might get an even more profound one about doing the vacuum cleaning. The next question, I can't help but make sure I don't pick up bad karma, but that's an illusion, I guess. Yeah, do you want to go for that, or should I have a go for this? Well, again, yeah, it's a story, the story of karma. It's a wonderful story. We living in separation, things kind of seem tough, and one of the bits of stuff that seem the most tough is that there's injustice, and we hate injustice. We have an evolutionary brain which has evolved to very, very strongly dislike injustice, but there is lots of injustice. So what do we do about that? Well, we make up a story. We make up a story which will say ultimately everything will become just, and there's different versions of that story, but really there's only two fundamental versions. One is there is a kind of all-powerful God who will eventually make everything just by casting my enemies into hell, which will be delightful to me, because as everybody knows, heaven has a window through which I will be able to watch my enemies burn eternally. And I mean, that was a thought that was around in the very, very early years of Christianity. I didn't just think of that one. I think Augustine thought of it. And of course, the other story is the story of karma that says, well, you know, my enemies will get their just desserts in a different way. You know, my boss is horrible to me, but he'll be reborn as a frog. So, you know, like that can give me, you know, a tremendous amount of comfort. You know, as I sit at home in the evening, yeah, it's kind of, you know, really obvious why we will make up these stories as we live this life of separation, surrounded what seems to be an external world in which all of this stuff is happening, some of which is very unfair. And then, you know, there's other stuff that's going to be worrying as well, which we've already looked at about death. You know, oh, well, it might be nice to think that I can be saved, or that there's rebirth for karma to be worked out, because that means that this will, you know, go on. So, yeah, illusion. Yeah, I would use the word story. Yeah, it's a story which can be very comforting and which can apparently, but with a huge stress on the word apparently explain a lot of what is going on. And meantime, you know, when this all collapses, when the stories collapse and the sense of self collapses, then, you know, there's just whatever's happening. You know, is there karma? Well, yeah, as a story. Is there karma? Yeah, as an idea. Is there karma? Yeah, as words being spoken. Yeah. Is there God? Yeah, as a story, as an idea, as words being spoken. You know, for a few seconds, for maybe a minute or two. And then what is there? Then there's a cup of tea, or there's a walk to the park, or there's brushing the dog, or there's whatever's happening. So these stories do tend to collapse, and they do tend to lose their interest. You know, when this is seen, it goes back to the previous question as well about death, that part of that is about, it's just recognized they're completely unanswerable. So the mind tends to go, you know, boring. I think I'll have an ice cream instead.
Oh, I think they're interesting questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're unanswerable. But
they're unanswerable, you know. Whereas, you know, is the ice cream shop open? That's answerable, that question is. Yeah. So go on. Okay, so you were talking about being formless, and Eugene's question is, being formless, ? That defeats physical contact and intimacy, ?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it's paradoxical, this stuff. So it's the opposite, because contact, physical contact, there's nothing in the way of that. You know, when you're relating physically through the mind, it's still relating through this veil in a sense, and you're not quite where you are. So, you know, it's much more intimate. There's intimacy without that. There's intimacy with the physical, but it's enhanced by that. There's not a loss of that. It's much more in the moment. So, you know, like say, the fantasy tends to recede in that. It's actually when you're with somebody and when you're intimate with somebody, that's what's going on, and nothing else is going on. So it's actually the opposite. It doesn't, yeah, I can see to the mind it doesn't really make sense, but it's entering fully into that scenario. So yeah, it's enhanced, I would say, quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, intimacy is increased when the veils that cut us off from intimacy collapse. Yeah, absolutely. Is that it? Because
because there's no, you know, there's a total acceptance of yourself as well. So there's a total, you know, it's without the mind, it's just pure relating. There's no, yeah, it's much more natural. So you're relating from your natural state in a way. So yeah, it can only be good. It can only be good. Like, so yeah.
So there's another hand up now. If Emerson, you want to bring Radu?
Go ahead, Radu, and unmute yourself, and if possible, open up your camera. Radu, oh, there you go.
Hello.
Hello, Radu.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Don.
Hi.
Yeah, so I was the one with the question of if the experience continues after the death of the body, and the reason I asked it is because this sort of peeling away of the self has started to happen here for some time. And the more this, not sure if deepening is the right word, but the more it goes away, there's a realization that I don't know anything. And I really loved when you said you don't know the answer to these questions. Because probably looking at or listening to gurus and people talk about this, they sort of gave the impression that part of liberation is somehow understanding these things which are metaphysical. But my experience is that I don't understand anything. So I really love the fact that you said that it's not about getting an answer to these questions. Is that correct?
But I was sort of thinking, if you experience like an ND, or near-death experience or something, it wouldn't be metaphysical in a sense anymore. It'd be your experience. It'd be just the experience of that. So in a way, there would be a knowing of that. That's not what's happened here. So for me, it's just speculation. So it would be very ordinary, I guess, like any of these kind of transpersonal experiences are. They're just very ordinary, just like this. So, but yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not interested in sort of the answer to the question. My worry was that I don't know the answer, and somehow there's a thought here or a belief that liberation brings about these answers, or I should know these answers. Yeah.
There's none. Yeah.
Well, great then.
No investment in any answer. There's none, like because it is accepted. It's so accepted that there is no answer. Like, so there's no struggle with it. Curiosity is just curiosity. It's innocent. It's just it's just arising, falling away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so until another hand comes up, we'll go on with these questions here. Meredith Lawson asks, is there an absolute reality?
Go for it.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there's a short answer. Yeah, there is an absolute reality, and this is it. This is absolute reality because this is the only reality. This is nothing and everything. So absolute reality is whatever is happening. Yeah. I mean, if the question is meant metaphysically, and I don't know if it is, but if it's meant metaphysically, as in, is there an absolute reality out there which can somehow be apprehended, then the answer is equally absolute, and it's no, because that would just be an idea. That's just an idea. And it can be a very tasty idea for the mind. It can keep, I've often referred to the mind, and I'm not the only person to use this simile, many people do, that the mind is like a hamster on an eternal hamster wheel, going you know, I'm searching for the truth. I'm searching for the truth. If I keep on going, I'll find the truth. And of course, you know, absolute reality is another word for the truth. But we all know that the hamster isn't going anywhere. We don't all know that the mind isn't going anywhere, but we do all know that the hamster isn't going anywhere. So just remember, the mind is a hamster, and that answers the question. There's no absolute reality in the metaphysical sense, but yes, this is absolute reality. This is as absolute as it can get, and it's also relative. It's both at the same time. There's no difference between the relative and the absolute, just as there's no difference between nothing and everything, and there's no difference between silence and noise, and there's no difference between stillness and movement. They are the same thing. They are the same thing. Yeah. Do you want to add anything?
Nothing really, just that I have no idea what this is, you know, like at the end of the day, like, I mean, who knows? Yeah, it is totally mysterious. Just coming back to that, it really is. So, I don't know, the word absolute, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one's for you, from Kane. It's for Dawn. When you say it is experienced from moment to moment, who is experiencing it?
No one is experiencing it. It is just simply being experienced. Before it seemed to be Dawn experiencing it, like me in the world, and it's just experienced. There doesn't need to be, it's that paradoxical thing of there doesn't need to be a person experiencing or anyone experiencing this for it to be experienced. And it doesn't mean to say that the experience of the character doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, like it really does. This life matters, like, and you know, what happens matters, you know, in the same way, well, slightly, you know, it's obviously modified by awakening, but yeah, so it's experienced by no one. It's just experienced. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Oh.
Yeah. No hands up at the moment, so we'll go on with this. Jonathan Lowry. Oh, thank you. I love your books. Do you have plans to release a new book soon? That's to me, no, I don't. That's a simple answer to that one. Probably not anyway. And then the next part of the question, is Dawn going to release a book as well?
Well, there is a book being written very, very, very slowly. But yeah, maybe at some point. Yeah, so hopefully, fingers crossed, if it keeps being written, maybe.
Monica asks, do you still react to politics?
That's one for you.
That's one for me. And then for you, I think, because there is the kind of quite a difference there, probably, maybe. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I see. I have quite a I don't know what to call it, I call it character. Yeah, I have quite a politically involved character. When I say involved, I mean within ideas. I don't actually get up off my arse and actually do anything. I'm far too fond of sitting in a chair to do that. But I have, you know, quite strong ideas about politics that, you know, come and go. And not just politics, you know, other things as well, society, philosophy, psychology, the way people interact. So, yeah, indeed. And again, I don't know whether there's any thought about this in the mind of the questioner or anybody else who's watching this. But of course, I think, you know, often when it comes to spiritual ideas, notice again the air quotation marks, there is maybe an idea perhaps that there's a should in here. Perhaps we shouldn't be, perhaps we should have risen above such things, just as I shouldn't care whether I get porridge or ice cream or tea or coffee because I have, you know, risen to a higher plane. Then perhaps I shouldn't care about what happens in society and on a political level and things like that. But no, it's just part of what's happening. You know, what is reality, what is absolute or relative reality, whatever's happening. So if thoughts about politics, reactions about politics, interest in politics or society arise, then they arise and they hang around for however long they hang around. And then who knows, the next thing that might arise might be looking at a tree in the park or having a cup of coffee. Who knows? Do you want to?
Well, the question, well, politically, well, I just don't think I have that kind of political brain. I just find it, unless it's kind of a philosophical take on politics, I'm just not interested particularly. I know roughly what's going on, but like, I just don't have that interest. It's not in me at all. So,
So yeah,
well, minimally, like, yeah.
So a very comprehensive answer there, yes and no.
No, I don't think anyone could upset me with politics or that sort of opinion. No, not really. Forgotten what the question was anyway. So.
Do you still react to politics?
Never did.
Never did.
Never did. Couldn't care. Say what you want, but yeah. But,
there's an assumption in the question that doesn't apply to you. Yeah. Move on.
Yeah.
Okay, John has got his hand up. I can see there.
Hello. Hi, Richard. Hi, John.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask: could the regular materialist view on the way this all is happening just not be correct? I mean, I've listened to quite a lot of non-dual teachers over the years, and ultimately everything they say doesn't really contradict that point of view. Could it not just be exactly how we think it is? There's lots of. I'll let you say something. Do you know what I'm saying? Could it not just be that we are the materialist perspective is correct, basically?
You mean when you say the materialist perspective, you mean like physicalism? There is just the physical and that's it. Consciousness is an epiphenomenon of the brain, all of that. Yeah? Is that what you mean? Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, that could be the case.
Yeah, it could.
Who knows?
Yeah, I feel like it's unlikely, but that's just my own kind of, I don't know, speculative thought. It could be. There's no way of knowing that. Well, not now anyway. So probably ever.
Yeah. I feel it's unlikely too, and the reason I feel it's unlikely is purely because I'm going to use this forbidden word. So please don't, try and get me to define it too much. But because of consciousness, or if you like, just the fact that we have experiences, make it as simple as that. There isn't anything that we know about physical matter or the the nature of the brain physically. There's nothing that we know about it that explains why experience should exist. So that's the big gap, if you like. That's what some philosophers call the hard problem. Who cares in a way, but my own feeling is it's unlikely that physicalism is correct, but of course it's possible. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So it might be just that we don't sufficiently understand it yet, and it might be explained later on. But it doesn't seem to make it.
Yeah. A lot of people think it will be,
Right.
Maybe like Donald Hoffman and all these guys who are working on, as consciousness fundamental and stuff. But yeah, I mean, right now we don't know. We don't know jack shit, so we may never know.
My feeling is very strongly, and I could very well be wrong about this, my feeling is very strongly that consciousness, or the fact that there is subjective experience, will never be explained. I think there's the fact is that everything that we can ever know about the brain is on a physical level, and consciousness or experience consists of something subjective, subjective experience, which is not physical. So I think there's, if you like, a lot of, again, philosophers of consciousness acknowledge this, they call it the explanatory gap. And this is what they call the hard problem, jumping from the physicality of the brain. It doesn't matter how refined the level it might be, it doesn't matter how far you go into quantum physics, you're still trying to jump from the physical matter, if you like, to subjective experience. And I mean, I've listened to Donald Hoffman, and I find him, he's a very good presenter, and I find it absolutely fascinating. And at the end of an hour and a half of it, I want my hour and a half back, because I realise he said precisely nothing. And I think the reason he said precisely nothing is because no one can actually say anything about this. And I also watch, other people talk about consciousness sometimes on YouTube, and invariably I end up with the same feeling. I want my money back, even though, well, I don't want my money back because I didn't pay anything, but I want my time back. I want that hour of my life back. So I have a very strong feeling here that this is just an impenetrable mystery, but it's kind of interesting to knock it around.
Yeah, I'm curious about where the research will go, if anywhere, like I am, but yeah, it's hypothetical right now, so.
Right, that's great. Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
I'll just throw in also, actually, I think it's kind of interesting how this has become almost like a new religious belief in terms of the strength of people's opinions about this. I've heard some speakers on YouTube become almost incandescent with rage at the suggestion that everything is simply physical, and furious at the thought that consciousness might not be supreme. So it's kind of interesting that just that this can give rise to very, very strong feelings, a little bit like religions can. Yeah. Should we go on?
Yeah.
Well, let's try this one. It looks a bit abstract to me. Let's try it. Is the illusion of the self intrinsically linked with the body? When I inquire who hears this sound, the brain non-verbally tells me this body. So is the illusion of the self intrinsically linked with the body? You or me? I'll go for it quickly while you're thinking, if you like. Yeah, the illusion of the self is intrinsically linked with the body as long as there is a body. Yeah, I would say so. Except, the illusion of the self. Yeah, the illusion of the self is intrinsically linked with the body as long as there's a body. Part of the shock of realization that we've already talked about is that when the illusion of the self drops away, it's very common for the sense of the body also to disappear, as Dawn was talking about earlier. So that would be my answer to that. Do you want to come in?
Because it's because no one hears, but it's, I mean, it's the mind, the identification falling away from mind and body both. I mean, like I say, it's a somatic experience as well as mentally that central core is just annihilated. So the question of who hears, who sees, there's just seeing, there's just hearing, which is kind of the same, only it's just appearing. So it's there's no one to whom it's appearing. But it's the same and not the same, because there's no one who's hearing that or seeing that or whatever. But there's nothing more to say really on that.
Move on.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, no hands up. So the next question here. Oh, it's just a comment from Dimitri. Yes, the realization that non-duality is not about being a perfect person is such a relief recently. Yeah. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's kind of the end of perfection, like this gives you the kind of ability just to be authentic, which doesn't mean that you will be authentic, but certainly it's much easier if you realize that you're not being authentic, that you can just start to get in touch with your authentic self, and rather than going around being people pleaser like I did, you can start to kind of just be how you are, which is sometimes great, sometimes in a good, whatever, all of that's acceptable, all the different parts of you. Yeah, so that's, yeah, but that, it's not a guarantee. This does not guarantee authenticity either, but it certainly makes it a damn sight easier to embody that, for sure.
Yes, a lot of very tasty and attractive and addictive spiritual stories can fall away. A lot of addictive spiritual stories, which often have quite near their core all sorts of assumptions about what about a perfected person, not just a perfect person, but we have to become perfected, and what that looks like. It can be such a huge relief, because these ideas of the perfected person are a straitjacket. It can be such a relief for all of that just to fall away. This is freedom. I mean, the name of this show is The Wind of Freedom. In other words, it allows for everything, it embraces everything, and it does not say there is a certain way we have to be. So yeah, I very much relate to that.
Yeah, perfection is a real barrier to doing anything. In a way, it can make you procrastinate for the rest of your life. It's something you really need to get over. It's something you learn really young, and to survive, basically. So it's about getting rid of that, getting rid of any ideals of how you should be, and just being that idiosyncratic person that you are. And that's beautiful. That's actually beautiful when you realize that can be totally accepted. And when it is, other people tend to like that as well. Everybody knows where they are with you. It's great. That's a real gift. So yeah.
Okay, next question. This is again one for you, Dawn. You talk about experience, Dawn. Is not the end of separation also the end of experience?
Well, experience is just what's happening. So, and also because the character lives in time, and is the timeless at the same time. So that's paradoxical, because I think I mentioned before, Tim Freak's very good on this. So, and like, you need time to understand a conversation. Experience, happens. It's not like you're just in the moment. Like, events happen, things happen. You can talk about that. Life goes on as before. It's just nobody living life. Life is just lived. Life is just happening. So yeah, it's without experience, well, this wouldn't, there'd be nothing, absolutely nothing. And that's the mystery. There isn't nothing. There's this, all this appearing. So yeah. No, I just add very simply, the end of separation, as long as the body mind's still alive, I'm assuming that, then the end of separation is the end of the experiencer. It's not the end of experience. Experience goes on. This voice keeps talking, this arm keeps moving, but it's the end of the one who feels themselves to be the experiencer. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I don't know whether I want to go near the next question. It's about vasectomy. Well, I can't duck out. It's up there, isn't it? Thinking about vasectomy, does this affect one's energies in a negative way? Well, I can answer that very simply. I have absolutely no idea. Do you want to add anything to that? No idea.
Should we move on?
Yeah, let's move.
I think we'll move on. Sorry, can't help you with that one. Oh, here's it's just a comment.
Poppy! Oh, I met this woman in the Chelsea Library. Oh, wow. Yes, it's funny. I went to a library a few years ago, and I was drawn to this woman, and we got talking, and turned out she was awake, and she's living in her own ship or boat, whatever. She's an amazing woman. Yeah, nice to hear. Yeah, I never forget that. So we chatted for quite a while, and then so yeah, nice to hear from you. Cool. Yeah, that was lovely. It's weird somehow. Like, I just had a natural feeling there's something about her. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, cool.
Okay, I think we've run out of questions here. No one's got their hand up.
There's one more there.
Oh yes, here we go. Oh, come on, that's not a fair question. I can't answer that one. Dawn, you can answer it. What is your favorite non-duality book?
Oh wow, non-dual. God, these things change over time. So I would say Robert Saltzman's The 10,000 Things, maybe right now, because I think he's great. Yeah, I don't know. That's a one that springs to mind at the minute. I haven't had time to think about it, but like, yeah, I wasn't really into the Nisargadatta so much, or Raman Maharshi. Well, I just get quite yeah, I find that quite unexciting. What about you?
What about me? Well, I'm hard put to choose between Tony Parsons' The Open Secret and my very own I Hope You Die Soon. There you go.
Obviously, Richard's books.
That's why I didn't want to answer that question, because I'm so bashful. But yeah, I genuinely do like both those books. And I'm going to mention any others. I mean, I have to say, I am not now, nor have I ever been, either a member of the Communist Party or a reader of non-duality books. I've been addicted to and fascinated by going to talks and so forth, but I did read a few early on. I also like Leo Hartung's Awakening to the Dream very much, and I like Nathan Gill's book, the name of which I have forgotten at the moment. Can you remember it?
I can't.
Not Clarity. There was another one. Whichever, I think he wrote two. Whichever one wasn't Clarity. So yeah.
And Jiddu Krishnamurti is the first I read. And yeah, I did like him initially, and G.G. Krishnamurti as well. Yeah, just the life in him, like he just seems so alive. Yeah, I really enjoy the idea of him, but also Jiddu, because he made me question myself for the first time. That was before I'd even heard of non-duality. It's like, wow, really opened my mind, that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I liked reading G.G. Krishnamurti's stuff as well. I think partly maybe because some of it seemed quite bonkers, but I did enjoy that. Yeah. Richard, Jonathan, Richard is my favourite book as well. Jonathan Lowry also asked, this is for you because you mentioned him, is Robert Saltzman a non-duality author? I thought he was just, I like that phrase. I thought he was just an anti-spiritual warmonger. Well, I haven't read him, so,
I just love the way, I don't know, I just get a sense of real authenticity with him, and I don't know, real just sensitivity and a question, I don't know, he's just he doesn't try to conform to anything, and I love that. There's a kind of real sense that he's just writing from what he really feels. There's no kind of trying to, I don't know, conform to a non-duality, which I think there is a kind of sense of that some point. But yeah, he seems very clear to me. I don't know what to say.
I've never read anything by Robert Saltzman, but I like watching him. I think he's great. I have a vague feeling that some years ago we had some emailing correspondence, him and me, about, I think it actually revolved around these kind of spiritual ideas about celibacy and other forms of purity. And I really like that because I felt we were both very much on the same side there. But the trouble is I can't find that correspondence. I've been looking for it in my files and can't find it. So it's quite possible that it wasn't Robert Saltzman at all. So if it wasn't and he takes offense at that, then I apologize. But no, I enjoy watching him. And here's a question that needs to be tackled. Is there any practice you recommend?
Yeah, the practice of being yourself. Just be yourself. Forget about non-duality. No, don't forget about non-duality, because you'd not be able to. But yeah, just practice being yourself, and then not as a means to realization, but just, I think that's the biggest gift, because it's not guaranteed with awakening either. Just to really kind of tune into your emotions and to be really authentic to that. I think that's like, yeah, and to withdraw all your projections, because that's not guaranteed either. If you don't own this, if you really don't own your own awakening as well, there's no guarantee that you will totally trash your projections. So to be totally free from all authority, you've got to really come into your own power and just start to really think for yourself. And that's not necessarily easy. That can take time as well, but it's very well worth doing. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, is there any practice? I remember maybe sit on a bench in the park, look at a tree, have a cup of tea, maybe anything that might be relaxing. But what I really want to say is that, there's this terrible phrase that's just popped into my head that some people use, a practiceless practice. I don't really know what a practiceless practice is, but what I do know, and this is a complete mystery and I cannot explain it, is that for many people, a practice simply seizes them. And it seizes them, and the practice is going and sitting and listening to non-duality speakers live if you can, and reading books and watching speakers on YouTube. This is not actually a recommendation, it's just that I notice that this is a practice that just seizes some people at certain times. And it's like, you know, in other words, there may come a time when we are dragged by the scruff of our neck to non-duality. So to me, that would be a real practiceless practice, because it's a practice that nobody's doing. You know, nobody can do that. Nobody can sit down and go, right, now I'm going to be seized by non-duality. But nevertheless, that can actually happen.
And there is an energy in those, like the meetings and being in nature as well, that creates a kind of openness that, you know, like, that can open you up to this. You can have the self can drop away in that momentarily. So, and it's interesting as well, because even after awakening, there's certain scenarios. So just sitting, it's like oneness likes idleness or sloth, or you just sit or you just wait, or something, you really sink much more deeply into this. And I think that's why people experience a lot of the non-duality meetings and stuff as really opening them up, and they get a kind of taste of this. So I would follow your bliss, as you know, Joseph Campbell said. You know, it's like wherever you feel more relaxed, and it's good for you anyway. Just to be somewhere where you can drop all you're doing and just to be, you know.
Right, now we go to the metaphysical again. Is anything knowable? Is the next question.
You can.
Oh, thank you. No, there you go. No, of course not. I mean, there's just this. How could it be knowable? I mean, the mind thinks that lots of stuff's knowable, and there you go. We've got a career for life for the mind, you know, sorting out what's knowable and pinning it down, defining it, putting it in glass cases with pins through its heart, writing about it in books. That's the mind, of course, but no. Essentially, in an absolute sense, of course, nothing is knowable. This is simply an appearance. So what is it? It's what it appears to be. What is its essence? Everything and nothing. Silence and movement. That's it. You know, so no things. And the question is, I'm being a bit picky here, because the question is, anything knowable? No, things are not knowable. No, we just make reasonable guesses at them and hope the guesses work out.
Yeah, and if you're really left hemisphere dominant, if you're a real kind of bureaucratic mind, the sort of left hemisphere of the brain is very knowledge-based, very I know everything. If you ever listen to Ian McGilchrist or whatever, like, you know, you need to be in being, you need to, I don't know what I was going to say. But yeah, so there, yeah, it's beyond the mind, this stuff. So it isn't, there's nothing that can be known. So yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing that can be known. That's a good one. Yeah. Next one, please. Did you hear a dialogue between Jim Newman and Robert Saltzman? Yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It's
Yeah.
very good.
Very good.
Entertaining.
Two apparent people coming from what seemed to me quite different, quite different positions with some similarities. It was great. It was a good joust or judo match. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I watched, Jonathan Lowry says, I watched the Jim Newman and Robert Saltzman conversation, and I thought that Jim Newman was quite clear and Robert did not make sense. He appeared inauthentic. I would be interested in an interview with you and Robert. Can Nothing Media make that happen? Well, are you up for that? The three of us, you, me and Robert Saltzman? Do you reckon? Well, we'll just put that out there. We assume that Emerson is in the background here reading and listening to that. And there's the question, can Nothing Media make that happen? It might not be as exciting though, because I think Jim Newman and Robert Saltzman both took up, very, this is my interpretation, both took up very clear, but also very different positions. So there was a good old, ding dong going on, which I very much enjoyed, but I don't know whether that would be the same with us and Robert. Anyway, it's put out there now, isn't it? Yeah, should we leave it at that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know Emerson's heard that.
I'm listening.
What? You're making notes?
Yes, I am.
Jim Newman speaks in a very authentic and a fluid way. That's why I like listening to him. It is as if butter is flowing in the pan. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Any more hands up out there?
There's a couple more here. Just a moment. Oh, that Robert Saltzman and Jim Newman. So,
Really wants a bit of gossip of what you think of non-duality speakers.
Learn how to sing in tune. Now, here's a question. Would you say, learn how to sing in tune? I says, would you say that there can be bodily experiences separate from the brain or thought, like a natural reaction of sorts, devoid of meaning?
Well, the body and mind isn't necessarily, after awakening, without thought, everything is the same as, everything's known anyway, so you don't need thought for that. Everything devoid of meaning. That's what you do experience, but everything is known without the mind anyway. So I'm not really sure what
it's getting at.
Yeah. So,
No.
Yeah, because thought can be entertaining, but it doesn't. It's not necessary to experience and to know what's going on. So which doesn't make sense unless you've experienced no mind, which, yeah.
Yes, if I think back to, when I was quite a long time ago, when I was a spiritual seeker and I had lots and lots of spiritual ideas and transpersonal ideas, we loved this phrase, the wisdom of the body. The body knows things that the mind does not know, which in a sense I would still, go with, that there's a kind of knowing which is deeper than the mind. But apart from that, I can't really address that question.
Yeah, because again, if you go by the brain, the right hemisphere is non-verbal, and that knowing is very deep, and it tends to be right. Like we know stuff without language. We do know, so it's connecting with your inner knowing is really, really important, and it's really essential to functioning well as well. So yeah.
Right. Anything else? coming up?
Questions.
Anything else?
I think that's the rest of the questions there, Richard and Don. If you guys want to go to the hat, it's already 90 minutes. It's already, time has gone really, really fast. And if you guys want to close this, that's completely okay. But you can also go to your hat. It's up to you.
Well, did I introduce the hat? I can't remember.
Not yet.
No, I think maybe we should keep the hat for another time in case it's needed. Yeah, there is this mysterious hat of questions. It's a kind of like a bottomless hat of questions that keeps on giving. But as we didn't need it today, I think we'll leave it till next month and see what happens then.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. Robert, sorry. Richard and Don.
You've really got to try and set this up now. Or is it Emerson? Yeah,
I'm just trolling. If everyone can unmute yourself and say bye, Richard and Don.
Thank you so much. Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Good to be here with you all.
Good night.
See ya. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Richard and
Hi,
Don.
Emerson. Thank you.
Oh, hi.
Bye
How
bye.
are you? Bye.
Fine. Fine. Thank you. I will
Thank
write
you.
you.
Oh,
Bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you as always, Emerson.
And Bikash goes, you are a joy to the world. Thank you, Bikash.